Welcome to another episode, and this one a very exciting episode of Silver Linings Podcast. We have a special guest with us. Adam, of course, is here. He's always a guest.
I'm the special guest. Yes, I get to be special today.
I'm Grunkle Reg. You're always special, Adam.
Thank you.
But we have with us for this podcast our publisher, and our publisher is just one of us. She is an optimist, and Adam and I mentioned early on that we're writing a book. We're going to try to get published early, and Jane contacted us just through the comments and said, well, I have a publishing company. Maybe I can help. Well, she understated that, and she probably understated her role because she didn't just help. She carried our sorry rear ends through the whole process. And she and her team, which includes two of her sons, and I don't know how many other family members, she and her team made that book a lot more than Adam and I inputted into them. And so we'll always be grateful. And she is wonderful and delightful the whole time.
You are very generous.
But I'm just impressed that you understood what I was trying to say. That's good. That's impressive.
Sometimes we didn't, Adam. Sometimes we made it. No, we did. You were both very, very wonderful to work with.
Thank you. But you did make stuff up for us to make us look better. We appreciate it.
A little bit, but you could have changed it.
You're just better at describing things. Book readers, they want all that extra stuff to help them paint a picture. And, obviously I'm a storyteller, so I love telling stories, but the way you guys wrote the book, you just, made it for readers to really come to life. So that was awesome.
Well, thank you. And I had been fascinated by the story and everything since the get-go. So it was always just like, oh my gosh, what I need to get into this. And when I did, I love the spin. I wasn't quite expecting the direction that you were going to take, but I love the looking for the optimist angle that you took. Very inspiring.
The silver linings. Thank you. Wow. Thank you for that. And thanks for helping us make that. And so we started working with Jane, and actually we got through the book. And then, as we said this on a podcast, in fact, no one is spared, but we are all blessed. We like that little mantra. And Jane went through just terrible challenges in her life. We want to hear about that because we want to hear from her optimism of how she has been dealing with that. And then Jane has an announcement that I think, even saying it's an exciting announcement probably isn't the right description, but she coaches authors, so she will come up with the best description. Best I could do is a very exciting announcement for all of us as optimists. But Jane, let's start with your story. How did you get to become a publisher?
I just had been coaching authors who were producing work that I was so excited about. I started coaching authors during COVID. I had come from being the educational director of a tutoring center, and I've always loved writing. I published my first book in 2012. No, it wasn't. 2016. Okay. I started
it in 2012.
I started writing it in 2012. That is very true. That's the way and then I was working with these incredible talents. And I knew that they couldn't just be writing and not do anything with their work. So I offered to help them query agents, go through the publishing process. I've done both traditional publishing and self-publishing. So I was familiar with the process. And the authors that I was working, two of them that their stories were amazing, were young. They were, one was 10 when we started working on her manuscript, and one was 11, I believe. And so it took a couple years, but they were both right around 13 when their books were published, and they wanted to work with me through that publishing process. So I was like, I'm here for that. And my children, you mentioned my 2 sons. I also have a daughter who works with us, and we have a couple other employees, but I have one that does the copy. My oldest does the copy editing. My son got, his degree in creative writing. He does broad stroke edits. And my daughter is in school at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and she does, like cover design and illustrations and formatting and everything. So it's just, I don't know. I would like to say I manifested it. But the truth is I'm just very blessed to be doing what I'm doing, what I love. I love finding and helping people to develop their creative voices and tell their stories. That's what we do.
And you get to do it with your family. I mean, you get to work with your family, which, and you don't have to go to a cubicle 9 to 5 and grind it out. You guys can work from home. You guys can, but I'm not saying it's because I know it's very difficult and it's hard work, and sometimes it's late night for everybody. So the hours I know are all over the place, but just in general, my thought is, if you can make a living at doing something that you love to do, I think you're 10%. Or maybe 20%. I just feel like a lot of people get up and go to a job that they really don't care about, but they're getting a paycheck for it, and they're forced into doing something that they don't want to do. It's rare to find somebody who gets to do something for a living that they love to do, and they figured out a way to make money doing it. So, and you're doing it with your family. So I just think that is amazing. It's great. So that is your
family.
That's the silver lining. Before we get to the bad stuff, that's the good stuff.
More than a silver lining, we were living in Texas, and in July we thought, well, why? I'm not saying anything too terrible about Texas.
Wait, I love Texas. I lived there.
I know. We lived there for 12 years. 12 years, but we decided that we wanted, since we can work from anywhere, we not all of us yet, but moved to a lovely place in Vermont, and it's beautiful. It's inspiring. Everything is good. So
that's awesome. Okay. Yeah. So with that all being said, let's get into just recently, as we were in the middle of doing our podcast and our book and stuff, you had some life experiences happen to you. And Rex has mentioned this so many times on the podcast. Nobody is spared. Because we all go through something. And off the, Rex and I were talking about other people who have things going on in their lives, like, oh my gosh, Adam, I can't believe what you went through. But then when they tell me their story, I can't believe what they went through. And so I think everybody has what they can handle. I mean, that's where I think what it comes down to. But let's start off first with, you had to deal with getting COVID and people dying in your family. So you want to just give us a little background of what happened just recently.
Yeah. And I will say, I am glad I am not strong enough to handle the things that you guys have handled. So yes. What I can handle is in November, just a couple days before Thanksgiving, we got a text message from my younger sister who lives in Utah, and she just said, please say a prayer. Kobe died. And Kobe is my 21-year-old nephew. He just returned from an LDS mission and was living at home before he was going to go back to school. He was working, and and I'm speaking about him in the present tense because that's what I'm going to do. He was healthy. He was is all those the amazing things, and he had passed in his sleep unexpectedly. He had gone the night before to the gym. He was he was into health. He wanted to work in health and fitness. He was doing weight training for competitively. And he had gone to get, and met with his ecclesiastical leader the night before to, get his interviews and stuff done. He was in a really good place, came home, spoke to his parents, told them he loved them, kissed them, went to bed. And then the next morning, my sister got up to get her young daughters off to school and noticed that his lunch he'd made the night before was still in the fridge that he, should have taken to work. And she went down and found that he had passed in the night. And I know that no one is spared. And I know, I've lost grandparents and aunts and uncles who are very dear to me and who had lived long and, full lives. And I don't need to explain. I can't explain. I still can't wrap my mind around just anything about it. It's been a struggle. And,
it doesn't make any sense to you.
It doesn't make. Thank you for helping me.
Well, because I know, and then you start thinking about being young, and I start thinking about Tylee and JJ. They're never going to be able to live their lives. They're not going. And you start thinking about young people that die early, and it's definitely something that is hard to digest and to understand. And obviously, it depends on what your faith is with God and all that stuff. Everybody says they're too good to be on earth, or got a better plan for them. There's things that kind of give you a little bit of hope, but still, even with that, it's devastating.
It is devastating. And even though I have felt his presence, his love, his just that he is good. And I don't need to get into any, of my personal beliefs, but it is just that hole that it leaves in you is, and my sorrow for my sister and her husband and her, his brothers and sisters. We went to the funeral and it was a beautiful event, except for the fact that someone in my family, I have blamed everyone, had COVID. And they had done this thing where he loved this certain kind of drink where you add it's soda and then a flavor and then some creamer. I had never heard of it before, but apparently that's something. Oh, so they were making them these Italian ice. I don't know.
Swig has those drinks that you go to Swig.
Yes, and that's a Utah thing, I think.
Yeah,
right?
It's a Utah thing. Yeah.
Okay, I hadn't heard of it, but you could choose all these different flavors and stuff, and they were really cool, and so we were all trying each other's. We hadn't just lived through a pandemic, and I had never gotten COVID through the whole thing. I was so good, but. I got COVID everybody got COVID, and it took me a really long time to recover from that. It turned into pneumonia, and then I don't know. It's just been this thing. I don't feel like I have gotten my feet back under me since that happened, and it's been a struggle. And so when I think about your community is amazing. And the things that are shared, on social media and in your podcast and everything have really been a source of comfort to me. And I can't say enough good things about that. But it has been a difficult process, and it does take time. And I don't think I'll ever be the same. I don't think any of us will ever be the same. But, it is really nice to have outlets and resources that we can lift and support each other. And so I'm grateful.
Do you think the community, the optimists out there that or either on the podcast or even on the Facebook page, do you feel like the support is what you feel most close to, or that you can relate to other people on there? Or what is it about the community or the hope, or what is it that you like about the Optimist community?
I do think the support and just the fact, because it's not like I didn't know people died, and it's not like I haven't had loss in my life. But for me, just the part where parents survive their children or lose, children. And it was really, so, I mean, I know you guys, there's so much more involved with your loss and some of the people that I've, the posts that I've seen and stuff, and the tragedies that are compounded by, criminal activity, but even the ones that aren't, I just, knowing that the courage that people have had has been an inspiration to me. And yes, the support, how loving people are in the comments and caring, and just, it has been huge. It has been huge for me. And I see that it has been really big for other people. So yeah, I do think relating to what other people have gone through. And I don't know if I was just off in my own little, I don't think I'm a callous person. Right. I was just like, oh no, that's sad. And I'm sad for them. I remember when Princess Diana died, and the whole world mourned. And I was like, yeah, but my grandma passed away last week and the world didn't stop and nobody was talking about it on the news. And she was like the most incredible person in the world. So feeling this again, and for some reason, just on this totally personal level that I did not expect and that no one should have to go through, it just really struck me to know that other people, that's every day they get up and they go on, and they don't just go on, but they support other people and they do what you guys are doing, so yeah, that it's been really very, it's such a blessing in my life. And I'm so glad that I had met you before all of this happened.
Before those three. So I always say, sometimes tragedies come in it's just somehow things happen in threes. Then you had somebody pass away, then you got COVID, and it was a bad COVID. When I got COVID the first time, it was bad. I didn't leave my bed for 3 days. I was out for it. But of course,
days. I was 3 weeks.
Well, guys are big babies. Guys are babies when they're sick. Guys are super. Yeah, but mostly women usually are they get sick and they still clean the house. They can still do stuff. When I get sick or hurt or whatever, I am out. I'm the biggest baby. So being the case of when you get sick or hurt or anything like that, and you have to deal with grief all at the same time, it's very hard to, like you said, come out of that, as you were trying to describe. So how did you, or you're in the process of doing it, what are some of the things that maybe you can share with the Optimists that helped you through your really dark times and these tough times?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to reference some other things too, because I am still processing and this string of events. But I find solace and comfort in a couple different things, and one of them is writing. A lot of the stuff I would wake up and I'll be, I guess not really praying, but talking to my nephew and saying, how are you? What? Tell me how I was very concerned about my sister and how to best support her. And I didn't know if I was intruding. I didn't want to, because would I want to be left alone, or would I want people to contact me and ask me questions and this and that? And I didn't know. But so I had all these emotions, and I have definitely learned throughout my life that keeping those emotions inside is not healthy. I coped for a lot of my life with difficult things by just burying them, pushing them down, ignoring them, putting up, just only looking for the good things. And I want to talk about that a little bit, because silver linings are amazing, but pretending that bad things didn't happen, not amazing. So really and truly, the emotions that I have, a lot of times I don't even know what they are until I write them down. There's a famous quote that is, how do I know what I think till I see what I say? And so that is very true for me, because I have lots of thoughts all the time, and some of them don't always make sense to me. And I feel I think there's such a huge mind-body connection. And sometimes in our society, we are told, to suck it up and be strong and don't, we get all these conflicting messages where we don't trust our bodies. And so like there's this disconnect. And for me, I can find the bridge, or I can find access to those emotions and not necessarily make sense of them, but at least process them when I write. So free writing, which a lot of people maybe already do when they journal. Mine isn't like I sit down and say, dear diary, this or that. I just start writing where I don't have a goal. I don't even know what I'm going to say. I just write whatever comes to mind. And then I read it through maybe that day, or maybe I have notebooks everywhere. If there is a notebook or a piece of paper, it is mine. So even if it's not mine, it becomes mine. And then I'll find them years later and I'll go, wow, I was going through some stuff or something, So I do that. Poetry also is a great outlet for me. And I have, studied writing, classics, literature, all the different kinds of things. And I am not a great poet. I can.
You don't rhyme everything, do you?
And I teach it, but for me, just being able, poetry kind of cuts through all of the banal kind of parts of writing a prose, and it just gets straight to emotion. For me, it's very raw. And so that helps a lot. And it isn't even necessarily to share. Sometimes it's just to get out of my head or my heart and onto the paper. So that really helps. I do have close relationships with my children, and we share our feelings. And with my family, I have an amazing family, and we support each other. So those are things. Being in nature really helps me to process. And I'll go on long drives and listen to music and just talk to my nephew, and just, whether what I feel or hear is, it's just whether it's self-soothing or whether it's, my nephew communicating with me. It is just a blessing to feel a connection, and know, that our love is real, and, it doesn't, him not being here now doesn't negate anything that we had before. So those are kinds of some of the things that I do to help when I'm really feeling, because, do I feel things?
Yeah.
So
my whole body.
Jane, being in the profession you're in now, of course, having your personal experience, what percentage of people would you guess benefit from writing as a type of therapy?
Oh, so many. And I don't know what percentage, because I always think, oh, well, everybody's like me, and so they, benefit from this. But there are people who are very structured and outlined and have a message and thing, and they know. I just write the things that I see in my head and feel in my heart. And so I will say, though, that my first two books that came out, the first one in 2016 and the next one in 2018, I began writing those not to write a book. I wrote, it was an assignment from my therapist at the time. She said, I had all these things in my head, and she said, well, write them down. And they were scenes, like with music and lighting and all these things. And to me, they weren't related to me in any way. They were just these really strong daydreams that I had. And so I started writing them down. And then I realized that if I sequenced them a certain sort of way and did some transitions, that might be a whole story. And I sent it to my therapist, and she read it, and she's like, this is a book. And I'm like, is it though?
Really?
And you know what? It was the beginnings of a book. And after 4 years and 9 drafts and very patient editors and everything, I realized it took me until I don't know which draft that I realized, well, my editor did say, and my therapist too, why don't you just stop and tell the real story? Just like get to the real stuff. And I'm like, what are you guys talking about? But then I kind of realized that I was telling a story that was personal to me and that I was processing. And what it really helped me to do, that process, was to take things from my internal landscapes that I couldn't see, and putting them on the page. And then I was able to manipulate them into ways where I was the hero sometimes. And I was not all the time was I the hero, but I at least was the main character. And I was active in creating the outcomes of the obstacles that had been in my way, or that I, because it's a blend of fiction and reality, everything that anybody writes, except for you. Yours was nonfiction.
I'm glad you pointed that out.
Any fiction,
even though ours sounded like fiction, it wasn't. It sounds like the story sounds like dangerous, right? Fiction. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but I did find real empowerment in that process where I was able to see it from different perspectives, and my goal wasn't to make me sound good or to like anything like that, but it did help me to process some traumas that I'd been through from my youth, from the end of a marriage, and we, like you said, nobody is spared. We all have difficult things. And what I did is I took reality and I blended it with a little bit or a lot bit of fantasy, kind of like, in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, where their whole experience is about processing the trauma of World War II. And, Alice in Wonderland is about an arranged marriage, and she goes down the rabbit hole, and there's fantasy helping her cope with that. And
drugs.
Thank you. So many drugs. But yeah, so that's what I did with my process. And as I'm helping other people find their voices and tell their stories, the intellectual process, I think, of not just writing it down and getting it out, seeing what you say, and then being able to organize it in a way that gives insight into what happened. So I would say more than 50%. That's what I like to say. All right. that the writing process really
about 50%. But you did mention a couple of things, and Rex and I have talked about this on this podcast a lot, of like how can our optimists, and Rex and I are part of this, how do we figure out ways that we can cope or ways that we can heal from trauma and all that stuff? And this is what really our podcast has turned into. And a lot of times we've heard people say, and you've heard me say, listen to music or comedy or write things down or whatever it is. We've talked about those things. And then Rex brought up, how important is writing for people. And you said maybe 50% or more
of published authors. But
right. But people in general, I think it's higher than that.
100%.
Okay.
Like, seriously, I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question.
Yeah.
Like, it would be really hard put if you sat down and wrote to, alleviate or to cope or something like that. You would have to try, I think, really hard not to get some relief from the process. I mean, sometimes you're thinking, like, why am I writing this stuff down? It's happened. Why am I focusing on this? But I think that if we don't look at it and we bury it, like, that is... Okay, so I'm just going to show you. So my first book is called Ribbon, right? I have it right here. Right. And in my first book, I am a victim. And wait, not me, the main character.
Right.
Victim, right?
Not you.
Wait, is that picture you, or is that a? Okay.
It isn't me. So, but the person who did the cover design, people ask me that all the time.
You got the same hair. I can see your neck could look alike. Maybe this part of your nose.
I wish it was me. It's not, but I love it. And I was definitely. It is the story of a victim coming to acceptance about some things that have happened in her past, and just realizing and accepting it and acknowledging it is very helpful to her, and was to my second book, Secret Keeper.
Yeah.
The main character becomes this, I'm going to say a swear word, badass shield maiden who is like this warrior, and she is so strong. And so like maybe too strong, but you guys, it was so much fun. And I almost feel like as I'm writing the third book now, like I have healed so much that I'm like, it's harder to write because I healed while I was writing.
Right.
So how do I come up with that tension and that, all that stuff? It's a harder process because those two books that I like healed everything. Now I will need to write a book.
Well, I think the new thing is and I started thinking about this when Rex and I were talking about writing and I think that music, we talked about listening to music. Well, you think about the songwriters that write a song about their trauma or their, and writing a song and then actually singing the song. It's got to do something to your soul to be like, that's probably a huge healing process to write a song about whatever you went through and then actually sing about it, because you hear it on the radio or wherever you listen to music all the time.
Oh, yeah. No, all the time. And they're not just writing the lyrics, but the music too sometimes. And then
and singing, the actual perform the singing, which you're getting stuff out.
That has been with my nephew. I get in the car and go on these long drives, and I will just say, okay, Kobe, talk to me. And I'll just put my phone on shuffle, my playlist on shuffle, and just listen to. And there are so many songs about, healing and grieving and loss and all the different things, but also about not just surviving, but thriving and cherishing and, growing and becoming. So yeah, I do think music, I think any of the creative and performing arts can really help us get into a place of healing.
And I think the other thing that you said was nature. And I think for me, being out in nature, going on hikes or walks, and if you can do it barefoot, where your feet are actually hitting dirt or your feet are hitting grass, there's something called earthing, where you're getting energy from the actual sand, dirt, grass that literally goes into your body and gives you energy. If you feel like every time you go to the beach and you're walking on the sand, you're like, man, I just feel great out here.
Yeah.
Or if you're walking on grass, a lot of times there's a whole thing called earthing, which I'm completely into. But we always talk about ways that you can heal, and I think you've mentioned those: going for a drive, listening to music, writing things down, and being in nature. Those are things that people who are listening, if you are looking for a way to heal, those things I think can help you heal. You should at least try them to see how you do on those.
Get you out of your mind and be, I think so too. It can really be moving. Sorry, I interrupted.
That's okay. Let me take one of those areas, go a little further. So writing, I think we've agreed, is beneficial for darn near everyone. But did it give you a different level, an increased level when your writing was published?
Oh, yeah. Well, okay.
Of healing? Like that helped you heal more? Because
sometimes people wouldn't talk to me anymore. but
it's like doing a podcast and all of a sudden your family doesn't want to talk to you.
100%.
Are they coming over again?
Right. It did. I mean, at first, I used to be a person who was, I'm still very introverted, but afraid of my own shadow. And I I lived in my head, and I talked about daydreaming. Active daydreaming is a huge part of my writing process, and being outside. You'll have to come visit, Adam, because that's what I do all the time. It's just
I want to. And I heard Vermont in the spring is out of control.
It's crazy.
It's eye candy. Like just
it is.
Yeah.
But just being out there. But so yes, when I published it first, authors sometimes have to have a thick skin because. And I realized my writing's not for everyone. My story's not for everyone. It's for me. And then maybe it's entertaining for other people, who want to escape and read another story. And, but one thing I did do is everybody has a different purpose for writing. Some people want to sell a lot of books. Some people want to, I don't know, be famous. It's going to take a while. But also for me, I wanted my writing to be good. And so that's, I was writing it. I was careful in the way I wrote it. And I wanted to be about something, it wasn't just
Rex and I didn't have any of those thoughts come through our head.
That's why you needed me.
Exactly.
Anyway, so out there, you read reviews that like people are like, but at the same time, my writing has won so many awards that I kind of don't care anymore.
You don't care anymore.
I'm like, they don't know what they're talking about, obviously. So yeah, it was validating. Part of me was like, oh my gosh, I have bared my soul. My story is in front of the world. And you go, but now I have obviously developed a voice and I'm no longer afraid of my own.
That's great.
So Jane, you've been this almost painful introvert.
Yeah.
And shy on top of being an introvert. Mm-hmm. And this has been so beneficial. Think of our community.
Oh.
No one's spared. So everyone in the community is processing, needs to process. Writing's a good idea. If only there were an avenue.
Only there were a way.
Yeah, let's get into this because this is the big exciting announcement that Rex and I think is
very exciting, as Rex said. Yeah. You guys, I would love to invite any optimists from the community any optimist who is interested in telling their story, exploring, possibly publishing, to contact me. I would like to put together an anthology of stories from this community. And I don't really have super specific rules about whether they should be fictionalized or nonfiction. But I do think it will be a really wonderful project for me to get to be part of as I'm, working on polishing manuscripts, or possibly if people are interested in, becoming a writer, or there's lots of different things. I do coach authors, but we also accept manuscripts from people who, have already written their story and don't need coaching and just want to publish. I want to put together a book of short stories or experiences or poetry. I'm open to it all. An anthology of stories from optimists about their grief and their processing and their loss and their experiences, their insights, their wisdom. Like, really, I'm not limiting it to one theme. But not only do I think it will be a wonderful outlet for the community to process their own stories, and not just because it will be a wonderful inspiration for me and help me heal as I am working on the stories, but I just think that it's something that could benefit everyone. We all learn from each other, and we learn from the process of, putting our stories out there. We learn from shining a light on things that lots of times are painful. And so people keep to themselves, and it's not a matter of courage about sharing your story. It might be a matter of opportunity. It might be a matter of just like, well, no, this is just, I don't want to be negative, so I don't want to put things out there, right? I'm saying to heck with all of that. Share your stories and send them to me so I can put them in a book so that you can have that, and the community can have that, and the world at large can have, the combined stories and wisdom of people who have either are processing, have processed, are just surviving or are thriving. I think that would be, that is what I want to do. So I am
love it.
I have an open call for stories specifically from this community.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Jake, how do you want people to contact you? Would you like to use our email, or do you want to give your email? Or
I'm happy to give. So we do have a website. It's manyrealmsmedia.com, where you can submit right through our website. And I will add something to the website because I do think we're looking at stories that would be anywhere from 2,000 words to probably the longest would be 10,000 words. That
definitely scares me and Rex off. Remember when we were writing our book, she's like, the book has to be 60,000 words. We're like, we got 20.
Yes.
I wasn't 60. It was 35 is what I said.
Yeah.
And I think...
And we still had 20. We still had 20.
I will say 250 words is a page, is one page. So 10,000 words is about 30 pages.
Okay.
And there are instructions on our website. I would, I want people to be comfortable. I want this to be accessible. So if they want to contact you and you're fine with that, let them contact you. If they want to contact through our website, I get everything that comes in, all the submissions, and
great.
we can talk about, even if people do just have questions. I'm trying to think which website it would be best, or not website, which email address it would be best to send questions to about, whether.
Do you have an email on your website where people just email you on your website?
I do believe we do.
It should just be an email. Well, if you don't, which one of your sons runs your website?
It's actually my daughter.
Oh, your daughter. Tell her to put your email on the website.
I'm sure it is.
Easiest way to go.
Yeah, I am such a non-technical computer person, so I really do rely on them. But yeah, that's true, because some people might not have a submission or want to go through the process of writing a manuscript before they submit. They might just have questions about, like, okay, but I've never written anything.
Yeah, right.
And we're happy to answer those questions. So, yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure there's...
And by the way, the Optimists, at least a lot of them that have read our book that you published, really enjoyed at the very end where we put in comments from the Optimist, and Rex and I commented on the comments. A lot of people ended up really liking that section of the book. So that was great.
There's a possibility for those kinds of things too. Yeah, I mean, the sky's the limit. Like every now and again, I'm like, oh, I don't think I can do that. I don't think that's allowed in the publishing industry. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I'm the publisher.
Right. I can do what I want. So what do you think? That's what we Rex do with podcasts. They're like, that's not what podcasters do. They're like, we don't know. We're just doing what we want to do.
Exactly. And it works. And people really, I think that authenticity of who you guys doing and being who you are, I think is amazing.
Well, listen, we appreciate you sharing your life with us and the things that you went through and how to heal, the way that you healed. I think that's a majority of our guests and people that come on our podcast I really love to learn from other people how they heal. And so this is really turning into one of those things where people can tune in and listen and be like, oh yeah, that makes sense to me. Maybe I should try that or whatever to heal. But you've been a great publicist for us. You saved us with writing our book for us.
No, I did.
Rex and I are just constantly saying, thanks for doing our homework for us, Mom. And
you're welcome, son.
Okay, now that's weird. Okay, let's do it.
Now we're getting
now it's getting on. But Jane, you're special to us, and we love having you. And thanks for coming on with us.
I feel the same, and I just want to say what a blessing. What a blessing. And talk about silver linings. I'm very grateful for you and for the whole community. So thank you, everyone.
It's a tremendous community. Thank you. And we'll look forward to the question. There'll be a lot of questions that to be answered, and we're going to use this forum to do as much of that or as many discussions as you'd like. Jane, you just tell us what you need. We want to support this completely.
Great. Well, thank you. And honestly, you are the inspiration, as I know you already know.
Thanks. All right. With more to come on this one. Well, that was a very exciting announcement for a lot of you from Jane that she's going to publish an anthology and you can contribute. I know we've heard a lot of you say that you've been writing your experiences down, and so being able to contribute to a book and have it published is an exciting thought. I just want to take a minute and explain how the finances work with that. For Jane, we aren't involved in the finances, but just so you know, Jane not only publishes, but she also instructs people on how to write to get published. So sometimes when you contribute to an anthology, you get paid $20 or maybe a little bit more for your contribution. Instead of that, if you contribute to this anthology with your story, Jane is going to give you your first writing lesson for free. That's $150 value. She gets paid $150 an hour for her coaching and for her writing lessons. So that's a good trade-off for you. And let's face it, most all of us, unless we're accomplished authors, which neither Adam nor I are, even though we've written books, we don't consider ourselves accomplished authors. That's quite a good value. Now, if you need coaching beyond the initial lesson that she'll give you, you and she will talk about that. Some of you don't have the money for that. You don't have to worry about it. You can still participate in this. It's just talk with Jane after you're at the end of your first writing lesson, and you'll be able to still submit for the book, and she'll talk about if she's going to do other editions in the future, or if she gets too many, how she's going to handle that. But we wanted to let you know there is a financial component because this is her business, and we do want her to make an obscene amount of money from this book for her business and everything she can do and that we can do with the book. We want to spread it to therapists so they can use it in their therapy. So a lot going on with this. I hope many of you will participate and the writing will be therapeutic and you'll find a lot of help with that.